publicly tell a woman that I love her baby. I love babies. Love babies. Love babies, believe me. I love babies. I love babies. I hear that baby crying. I like, let the baby cry.
I love to hear babies cry a little bit. It's fine. It's good.
What a baby. What a beautiful.
This weekend, Republican lawmakers and 2024 presidential hopefuls are gathered in Washington, D.C. for the Faith and Freedom Coalition's annual conference, hoping to court evangelical voters by doubling down on some of their most extreme talking points.
These new Marxists want to give America a new religion. They want to impose on us the religion of woke. It is the religion of transgenderism, critical race theory, and open borders multiculturalism. And they are shoving it down our throats.
In Florida, you know, they have found pornography in the schools. So the media will say, if you get the pornography out, that's somehow a book ban, which is a total hoax.
And we will end the gender ideology that is running rampant in our schools.
That is when the poison fills the void. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, globalism, depression, anxiety, drug usage, suicide.
What on earth is he talking about? Joining me now is Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and former spokesperson for the House Oversight Committee, and Aaron Haynes, editor-at-large of the 19th and an MSNBC contributor. I'm glad you both are all talkers because I'm a little stunned. Vivek Ramaswamy continues to impress me with his ability to come up with new stuff all the time. But I'm just taking some notes here. Wokeism, climatism, never heard of that. I'm very concerned about the climate. Does that make me a climatist? COVIDism. I was concerned about COVID. I wore a mask. I guess I'm a COVIDist. I don't know where he threw in pornography into this whole thing. Multiculturalism. Aaron Haynes, I grew up in Canada. Canada, it's just been announced. I'm going to talk about this later, but now I'm going to bring it up now. Canada has more people for the first time than maple trees as a direct result of its engagement of multiculturalism, of immigration, and of seeking out the world's refugees to populate it. All of these things that he's talking about, a lot of Americans wear as a badge of honor. The stuff that they are carrying on about.
Well, Allie, what are the maple trees doing to fight back against this population, surging population? Look, I mean, it's interesting. It's on that stage over the past few days, but what you have not seen is any of these folks actually making the case for why they should be the candidate instead of Donald Trump explicitly. And that's probably, for now, it looks like these attendees at this Faith and Freedom Coalition conference are still sticking with Trump. And most of the people looking to replace him right now know better than to run afoul of his voters.
And Kurt, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans because it doesn't move anybody on any needle, although it is a Republican primary, so they can get fun because typically what happens is someone gets the top spot all the time for a week, but that's not happening at the moment. But there's no policy in here. If you don't like open borders, you control the House, make a bill. If you don't like all these things, there's no policy that's being suggested to combat them. They're just isms that they're scaring people with.
Right. I mean, it's just rhetorical flair where there's no substance, fact, or even common sense behind it. You talk about, what's that, climatism? Well, why don't we go ask the people of Texas what that's going to be like as they're burning up this week and worried that their grid is going to fail. They talk about transgender indoctrination. Democrats aren't the one talking about that every 5 seconds on TV. They are the ones that are talking about it constantly. So if they don't like it, maybe they should just shut up about it, for crying out loud. They talk about all of these things at let me get this straight, faith and freedom. It seems very Christian, right? That we're going to talk about making things harder for people to look different than us, that we're going to, take a dump on diversity, that we're going to try to make it so that people who don't look like you should be afraid of. That sounds like very Christian, faith, Jesus-oriented stuff right there. You talk about freedom. Last time I checked, Ali, it wasn't the Democrats that were banning books. It wasn't the Democrats saying you can't love who you want to love legally in this country. It wasn't the Democrats who are invading this cancel culture type cult that we see from Republicans. It's not Democrats who are telling private enterprises like Disney what they should or shouldn't be able to do and then using the instruments of government to go after them if you do something that we don't like. That's what the Republican Party is doing. So I have no idea what they're talking about.
He has let us down because he's unwilling. He's unwilling to take responsibility for any of the mistakes that were made, any of the faults that he has, and any of the things that he's done. And that is not leadership, everybody. That is a failure of leadership. And you can boo all you want. But here's the thing. Our faith teaches us that people have to take responsibility for what they do.
Now that is Chris Christie on a tightrope. Right? He was getting booed. He's saying things that crowd does not like at all. He's taking on Donald Trump directly. Again, doesn't seem to get you much, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chris Christie's whole campaign, remember, is staked on taking Trump on head on as a path to victory for him. And this Faith and Freedom Coalition conference was supposed to be like an early test of whether or not this is a viable strategy for him or any of Trump's other rivals. As you just saw, though, that did not go over very well with this crowd. He's closing out this conference. He's the headliner tomorrow night at their dinner gala. So even, the former Vice President Mike Pence chose to play up the years that he was loyal to Trump as his vice president, totally avoiding January 6th and the fact that the president was literally going to leave him hanging. So for now, Christie is still pretty much, and I guess Asa Hutchinson, as you mentioned, very much out on a limb. And that's not a strategy, I think, that is sending him to a debate stage anytime soon.
I want to talk about Kevin McCarthy for a second. You worked at the House, Kurt, so you'll understand this. Kevin McCarthy could be doing other things this week, right? He could be taking on Joe Biden about a number of policy issues. He could be talking about immigration. He could have a bill, but he's not. They're talking about the impeachment of Joe Biden over policy differences about how he handled the southern border. Now, impeachment's an important thing, and people should be held to account, but it's not actually about policy differences, right? If you just don't like the way somebody handled a policy, then you should try and get them kicked out of office and get yourself elected. This is what Kevin McCarthy said before leaving for the holiday recess. McCarthy said he would like to eradicate both impeachment votes, the two Donald Trump impeachment votes, from history, claiming Trump's behavior didn't rise to a level that merited either impeachment. Interesting thought. Many would disagree with him. But he's got Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene fighting over impeaching Joe Biden right now over the southern border.
I mean, here's the thing. You can't do these false equivalencies if you're Kevin McCarthy. You can't compare Joe Biden to Donald Trump because it's just two different solar systems here. The last thing that Kevin McCarthy wanted to spend the week talking about is an effort by his caucus to impeach President Biden. There is zero appetite in this country for that. We just heard the laundry list of grievances, invented grievances, that Republicans are whining about at this so-called Faith and Freedom Conference. Hey, newsflash, you guys have control of the House of Representatives. You could pass laws right now.
Right.
Speaker McCarthy controls the House floor. Why don't you do something about it rather than just talk and whine about it? If anything, this lurch towards these theatrical impeachment, which is really all it is. It's reality TV playing out on the floor of the House of Representatives, brought to you by the lawyers of Insurrection LLC, as Eric Swalwell would say, rather than actually doing anything substantively about the stuff they just want to complain about at conferences like the ones that they're at right now. They're not doing anything with their majority, so they have to try to create this atmosphere of conflict and fear and tension to try to justify their very existence, when in reality, when given the reins of power, which they have right now, they've chosen to do absolutely nothing but BS PR stunts.
The problem, Aaron, is that let's say they took Kurt's advice or Michael Steele's advice from last night. Do something. Make some legislation. They know it's not going to work. This is the anniversary of Dobbs, a wildly unpopular thing. You've got Lindsey Graham and people like that saying, let's have a 15-week ban on abortion, and a whole bunch of Republicans saying, please don't do that. Please don't pass any of these bills. Don't do any of that stuff because it will be really bad for us. So I suppose, given the alternative, passing unpopular bills that the American public doesn't actually want, this is what you get. You get a whole bunch of cats in a burlap bag carrying on and distracting Kevin McCarthy and the nation from getting anything actually done.
Well, and also distracting from the abortion conversation, which I think is kind of a theme for the week, because that was the other thing you didn't really hear about at the Faith and Freedom Coalition conference. Certainly you would have expected at a conference full of evangelicals to hear about that. But Ralph Reed, the founder, was one of the few people that was even mentioning, the Dobbs anniversary at this conference. I agree with Kurt. I mean, C-SPAN was looking more like the Real Housewives of Congress this week. And it is the latest chapter for the Republican Party and their divisions. You've got these two high-profile members jockeying for position and influence. And so the result of that is that instead of talking about Hunter Biden or any of these kind of culture wars that they would prefer to be focused on, we're talking about this war between Boebert and Green. And if you're Speaker McCarthy, you're right, that can't be good for business.
Tomorrow marks 1 year since the Supreme Court handed down the Dobbs decision and overturned Roe v. Wade, taking away nearly 50 years of reproductive rights from millions. To commemorate the anniversary, the religious right wing gathered today in Washington, D.C. at the Faith and Freedom Coalition Conference.
Thank God Almighty for the Dobbs decision. Absolutely. We are creating a culture of life in America, and that's a really good thing.
Every Republican candidate for president should support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard.
At 15 weeks, we're going to draw a line. We're going to save babies in California. We're going to stand up for the unborn in Washington, D.C. And if you cannot do that, you should not be the nominee for the Republican Party.
I want to get your response to something former President Trump said last night about the indictment. Let me play it for you.
Whatever documents the president decides to take with him, he has the absolute right to take them. He has the absolute right to keep them, or he can give them back to NARA if he wants.
It's not often that somebody who's accused of something admits it at a function there. Is there any part of that statement that's correct?
I don't believe so, Chuck. We don't have a right to take top secret information to our home. I've dealt with top secrets since I was 22 years old, in the military for 30 years, and now in Congress. You don't show our attack plans on Iran to people who are not cleared, or documents that talk about our nuclear technology or where our intelligence resources are located throughout the world. And that's what happened there. And when the government asks for them back, you give them back. You can't, and if you deny having them, but then you have them, those are crimes. And so,
why do you think the party rallies around him when these things happen, rather than looks at the facts like you do and say, you're not supposed to do this, sir?
Like we have President Biden, who had classified, but he gave it back when they found it. We have Mike Pence, who had classified, but he gave it back. But I think people see, well, there's other people that had classified, but the situations are different. I personally thought Hillary Clinton was wrong for having thousands of emails on our private server that I can guarantee you that Russia and China could penetrate and read some of those emails that were top secret. I thought she should have been held more accountable. But I think a lot of our voters see or perceive these inconsistencies, but two wrongs don't make a right. You can't have hundreds of top secret information and be showing our attack plans on Iran to non-cleared people. I think, again, our party does best when we stand on the rule of law, the truth, the principles that made our party strong. And if we walk away from that, we'll be weakened in the short run for sure.
Grab him by the pussy.
But in 2020, Biden won more because of who he wasn't than of who he was. And in a head-to-head matchup, Biden leads Trump by the same 4 points that he defeated him by in 2020, 49-45. In a matchup against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, you can see here it's 47-47. I'll tell you in a few minutes what that difference is and who are those swing voters. One thing that doesn't appear to be changing voters' minds so far is Donald Trump's federal indictment. Just 34% of a positive feeling towards Donald Trump, 56% feel negatively. Guess what? This hasn't changed a bit in about a year. And although a majority of voters overall, 55%, have real concerns about these federal charges against Trump. Just 23% of Republicans do in primary voters. Just 16% told us they have a major concern about this. Instead, 64% of Republican primary voters call the investigations into Trump a politically motivated attempt to stop him. We asked the same question in April. It's just 4 points less than what it was in April. 31% say it's important to nominate a candidate who will not be distracted by legal problems and can focus on beating Biden. Pay attention to that 31% a minute here, because I'm going to show you something in a minute. And though only half of the Republican Party, 49%, say the Republican Party should continue to be led by Donald Trump, the not-Trumpers are not coalescing around any of Trump's rivals. Trump overperforms these numbers. In the Republican race for president, Trump leads Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by 29 percentage points now. He's got 51. DeSantis, the only other candidate in double digits, with 22. This is actually nearly a doubling of what the margin was in April. Trump was under 50. It was 15 percentage points. And in a head-to-head matchup in a Republican primary, Trump almost has a 2-to-1 lead here, 60% to 36. So again, 49% say they don't want Trump to lead the party, and yet he's overperforming that number. There are never Trumpers voting for Trump over DeSantis. By the way, the DeSantis voter profile there doesn't match the campaign he's running, for what it's worth. Meanwhile, the groups where Trump does lag behind DeSantis in that matchup against Joe Biden do offer another warning sign for Trump and the Republican Party if he is the nominee, because they represent the most of the persuadable electorate. They're independent. They're women without college degrees, voters over 65, swing state voters, and voters who say they only somewhat disapprove of Joe Biden's presidency. So like the soccer moms and office park dads of past cycles, this cycle's key swing voter may be these somewhat disapprovers, because they were huge in the 2022 midterms. And right now they're picking Biden over Trump. And of course, the other giant red flag in this poll for Trump and the GOP, unlike previous Supreme Court decisions on interracial or same-sex marriage, public support for the decision overturning Roe v. Wade is not growing. If anything, it's moving away. A year after the Dobbs decision, it has become even more unpopular. 61% of voters disapprove, just 36% unapprove. It is a massive generational gap there, by the way, for what it's worth.